Hi, Anna. Hi, everyone. Oh, Richard just joined. And perfect. Hi, Neil.
There, how's that?
Perfect.
Okay then.
How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good. Our
Oh yeah, now
first Instagram
I get to
Live.
see Shad. Yeah, Shad Dales is still stalking us now electronically. That's fantastic.
James says he's finishing his workout. Awesome.
I can see it all. Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess we can kind of get started into kind of what I wanted to talk to you about today. Um, what does the CSE look like right now from an operations perspective, seeing as I'm not there? So I don't really know.
Yeah. So we've obviously into our business continuity plan, which means that we have only a very small handful of folks at First Canadian Place in Toronto. In fact, our accounting group is on site today because they're closing down 2019 financial reports, which we take to the board next week. But the key members, obviously, of the technology and market operations team are. I think we have three folks as opposed to about 12 who are normally involved. We also have one person in our Vancouver office in an IT role, and she's holding down the fort there. But basically, everybody else is working off site, and we're figuring out, as everybody else is, what this WFH means. And for example, this morning I had coffee with our market data and trading services team, and it's a pet-friendly meeting. And so I managed to introduce the team to, my cat Persephone and my dog Taya. So it's all good. And I think people talk about how stressful it's been, and dealing with the isolation and obviously the pretty wild swings in market activity that we've had. And obviously many people who've been put out of work and have very very serious financial concerns. But learning how to connect with folks this way is really been a learning experience, I think, for all of us.
Yeah. And I know that the government had put out some sort of relief package for private companies, and the CSE kind of commented or released a statement. Just can you talk a little bit more about that and how we kind of want to help? What about public companies?
Yeah, so that's a great point, Grace. We were alerted over the weekend by a couple of our issuer firms that the government's relief package for business and workers was actually designed for private companies only, Canadian-controlled private corporations. And what that meant was that it obviously excluded public companies, but it also excluded proprietorships and partnerships, which actually are the way that most small business is organized in Canada. So what would happen is that if you were an employee of one of those businesses, either, again, these proprietorships or partnerships and public companies, you wouldn't qualify for the wage subsidy relief that was being offered by the government. So we wrote a letter to the finance minister, and so far, it was acknowledged with kind of an out of office memo, actually.
Yeah.
But we did circulate it widely to a variety of business groups, various other influencers, and we did get some traction with the conservative bench. And we think that a number of folks did, in fact, raise the issue with the government. And Mr. Trudeau yesterday in his 11 o'clock or 11:30 briefing, as the legislation had cleared the House of Parliament, and was on to the Senate for approval, did say that the government was prepared to think about changes to the relief package in the coming days in response to a lot of feedback they'd had from various industry groups like ours. I was then especially gratified to see that our friends at the TMX group, virtually word for word, wrote the Minister of Finance yesterday afternoon, echoing our concerns. And in various online or social media outlets, I've commented that it was nice to see that they joined the the effort. So what is
We
it?
can take
You
it
know,
as a
flattery
compliment.
or yeah, we'll take it. And yeah, I mean, they obviously have resources and sway and all of that stuff. And ultimately, the goal here is to make sure that we can get you know, relief to the employees of businesses and to help these businesses survive, even if they're public companies.
Yeah. And on that note, just because I think everybody right now is a little bit concerned about the economy. And, you know, it's kind of taken a turn. And how does that compare to other times that the economy has taken a turn? Like, what's the difference now? And do you see, what kind of recovery do you see for our economy?
You're just asking me that because I'm old, right, Grace? And I've seen lots of.
I've only seen this, so.
So basically, the you know, we look at it, at least I look at it from a couple of different angles. I mean, it's the first one, and that is the capital markets. You know, we're obviously spending you know, our daily focus running an equity capital exchange in Canada. What's happened this time is that the governments and central banks have moved very, very quickly to inject massive, and I mean massive amounts of liquidity into into the financial system. And so what they're doing is being compared with past crises, whether it was the financial crisis, 9/11, the dot-com blow up, the various crises through the 90s, and of course the 87 crash, all of which I've seen, thank you very kindly. Um, the but they've taken steps, as I say, to try to get out in front of any restrictions in liquidity in either the, well, in particular in the debt markets. So when the U.S. Fed says we will purchase unlimited quantities of treasuries and mortgage backs and corporates and so on, unlimited is a big number, I think. So that's a clear signal to you know, the marketplace that they're not going to let the lending facilities, credit facilities, basically, to seize up as they have in past crises. So that's good. Obviously, on the other side of the coin, we talk about the real economy, you know, the things that put food on people's tables and help them pay rent and all of that. And, you know, clearly we are in uncharted territory here. The job numbers this morning that came out of the United States, you know, some of those charts are just unbelievable when you see that weekly job claims have been averaging in the low 200,000s per week. And this week it was almost 3.3 million. So obviously a gigantic increase. Canada, it appears, was even bigger on a per
Yeah.
capita basis with at least 500,000, and people were suggesting that the number was actually a million who were out of work for the first time last week. So these sorts of numbers are absolutely without precedent in my career and suggest that we do need to be moving as quickly as we can to afford as much assistance as we can to these people, because it's extraordinarily stressful, obviously. Not only are, you know, people worried about health and you know, preserving the you know, I guess the integrity of their families, whatever, but also obviously under significant financial duress, and so I think that suggests that governments should be moving very, very quickly to address these concerns.
Yeah, it seems as though, and this leads into my next question, it seems as though Paul from Nextleaf just posted a barfing face as an emoji. So that leads to my next question, which is what is the outlook for cannabis industry? right now. How is that gonna look like after all this?
Well, the cannabis industry is an interesting place over the last few weeks. Um, Many of the legal for recreational and medical purposes states in the U.S. agreed to declare that the cannabis dispensaries were in fact essential services, and they've remained open along with the uh, uh, pharmacies and grocery stores and gas stores and gas stations or whatever. And we had a similar situation in Ontario with the government lockdown as well. So, and my understanding is that in both Canada and the United States, and I've seen stories in the Wall Street Journal and Financial Post and so on in the last day or two, sales have gone off the charts. I believe there are some jurisdictions in the United States where you can't buy liquor, but you can buy cannabis products. Um, so I think there's clearly some folks who are going to, I think, have some real interesting sales numbers as we work through this situation. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think the generally, though, we're going to see some interesting times as we come out of this from a corporate finance perspective. There's still a lot of companies that are dangerously short on cash that are going to need to restructure or raise additional capital or look for merger opportunities. But that's pretty much on hold for the time being. Everybody's retreated back and conserving cash as much as they can, and which is pretty much true across all of the business community in North America as we speak.
Yeah. And where do you get your news from? Like this is pretty like uncertain times for a lot of people. Like what are your resources or your sources that you use to keep up with like real news and not fake news, so to speak, during this time? Because it can get scary.
Well, it's just an accident that I'm wearing my CNBC golf shirt.
Plug in.
But yeah, no, I guess
That's okay. I'm wearing my
entirely.
slang sweatshirt.
Oh, well, there you go. But you don't have any swag from Cheddar yet. We'll
No.
have to take care of that. We'll have to take care of that. But yeah, I've been, basically looking at the usual media outlets. I rely heavily on Wall Street Journal for the overnight news and market levels. New York Times is obviously an interesting source of information, and they're certainly, normally fairly critical of the administration in the United States. Lots of different viewpoints there. In Canada, the usual Globe and Mail, Financial Post. I look at the Star to see what's going on there. Shad's telling me I need to be looking at the Dales
Yeah,
report
the
more
the
often.
Dallas report. Nice.
Which is and I do. Yeah, Breitbart.
Yeah,
Thanks a
I'm
lot,
like,
James.
what? Thanks,
Yeah, no,
James.
no,
Thanks.
not Mr. Breitbart,
And how are
but
you dealing with isolation? Where are you right now?
I'm not telling. We have a place in the country outside of Collingwood, Ontario. Small farm, the reasonably nice house, and although we're still in the middle of mud season here, there's about a foot and a half of snow still in the
Oh,
backyard
wow.
here, and I was sort of hoping when we went into this semi self-isolation that there would still be skiing, but of course the ski clubs and Blue Mountain all closed down a couple weeks ago, and they very unkindly put big ridges in the snow on each one of the runs to basically make them unskiable
Yeah.
if you were prepared to do some hiking, which I would have. So basically, I'm just sitting here cooking extravagant meals for my wife, enjoying my pets, and getting fat is pretty much.
Yeah. Looks like we're in the same house. Maybe we are. Maybe we are. And what are some of the what are some of the drawbacks to isolation? Like, what are some of the things that, for me, it was kind of hard to kind of work from home. Like I was joking yesterday, I've just been like working on my bed. So that's been different. That's a different thing. And, just like not being able to have that FaceTime with people immediately, because we're a very social team. So what kind of things are you dealing with?
Hiccup there for a second.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think um, as I talked a little bit at the outset, um, learning to support each other, whether it's over conference calls or through video interactions, I think is really good, and we've been doing more and more of that. Um, the operations team sets up conference bridge.
Sorry, we had a little
Um,
bit of a connection issue. 1 second.
yep.
There we go. Perfect.
Okay. Was that you or not me?
Yeah, it was me.
Oh, okay. Um, in any event, as I was saying, that learning to collaborate with people using conference calls and this sort of medium it's fun. I mean, it's as I mentioned, I had coffee and pets this morning with the market data and trading services team, which was fun. The other days, I joined in the conference call with the market operations and technology folks as the market is opening up and share notes in terms of what's going on. I was with them through all of the circuit breaker triggers. My job was to watch the S&P 500 levels and give alerts as we
Hmm.
approach the 7% figure. And people share jokes and memes and stuff, that have been circulating overnight. So it's obviously not a complete substitute for human interaction, but it's way better than nothing.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Richard, for joining me on the live. This is our first ever Instagram live, and you're a fast learner. And hopefully many more to come. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you.
Well, we've got some questions.
Oh, yeah,
Can
no,
we
Anna,
we have some more time?
yeah, it says, do you see, oh, can't see it. Do you see one sector being able to see any traction in these markets over another?
Yeah, and there was a previous question about practical investment advice, as we come out of this. So I think let me take the first one first.
Okay.
Um, because people have been asking me a lot, what do we
Yeah.
look for? Well, first thing is, I think that with the amount of liquidity that is going around that's sloshing through the system, if you want to call it that, the rebound um, is going to be very quick and it's sudden in the markets. And it's obviously easier for me to say that now than would have been sort of 2 or 3 days ago. But I hope you can validate that that's what I've been saying all along, please, Grace. That as I say, the recovery will be quick because
Yeah.
there is a lot of cash, and interest rates on the short end of the curve in the United States are now negative, which and the curve is the interest rate curve is such that it looks very very favorable for stocks. So there's a lot of opportunities to buy good quality securities which have a long history of increasing their dividends, who've been tripped up obviously over the last few weeks, but they will rebound. And man, you would much rather be getting in at the price they are now than what they were a month ago.
Yeah.
So these stocks are on sale. Now, that doesn't hold true across the board, right? I mean, even though somebody was telling me the cruise lines are up 100% over the last 3 days,
Yeah.
that one's a pretty risky bet. And the same thing with the airlines. I mean, I do think that people, as we come out of this, are going to travel like crazy,
Yeah.
have a lot of fun. They're going to go out to restaurants. They're going to do all of the things that, movies
Yeah.
and sporting events and everything. People are really looking forward to that. There's gigantic pent-up demand to do these things. But it's not clear that the airlines will make it unless there's some kind of bankruptcy restructuring. There's a lot of risk for investors in those areas. People keep asking me about the cannabis space. Look at the results of some of the larger U.S. multi-state operators over the last quarter, and then the sales that they've had in the last few weeks. They're really knocking it out of the park. Canada is more challenging because we still have all of the issues with retail in Canada that make it very difficult to do all of the things you need to do to have successful consumer packaged goods. So those are going to continue to be areas where it may be a challenge for some of the bigger names and some of the smaller names to do well under these circumstances. But overall, I mean, I think the cannabis industry has shown itself to be extremely resilient and a classic, recession-proof.
Yeah.
They used to talk
Yeah.
about cigarettes and alcohol being recession-proof. Well, as I say, I think the cannabis industry has joined that space. Um, but also, again, in thinking about the market moving forward, again, I think will be a lot of interesting opportunities as people restructure companies. And the other one that's going to be interesting is, boy, if interest rates are going to stay down where they are, think about how many people are going to want to refinance their existing mortgages or indebtedness. And that's going to be really interesting. Or take equity out of their house and get rid of other debt at extremely low interest rates. So
Hmm.
the companies that service those those businesses will probably do really well.
James is buying a car this summer. What kind of car, James? Cheap gas and free debt.
Yeah, actually, the interesting thing is my son actually came up yesterday for short, discreet, and distant visit, and I'm hearing that regular gas is under 70 cents at some of the pumps up here. So crazy, crazy.
Yeah.
But in any event, I'm my next car. I think I'm gonna go electric if I can
Yeah, I was
afford
gonna
it.
say, I feel like you're a Tesla guy.
Oh, well, yeah. Don't be foolish.
Oh, someone said don't be foolish. Oh, okay.
Yes, yes. There it is,
Oh, it's
67 cents.
Christian.
That's what we got. But yeah, I have only had a few opportunities to ride in Tesla, and I've been extremely impressed with the handling, acceleration, spaciousness, and all of that stuff. So
Yeah.
it seems like a pretty good product.
Yeah. Oh, Shummer. Oh, Phillips in under 60 cents in Richmond Hill. Perfect. Great. Thanks. All right.
There you go.
Well, is there any other questions that we want to, does anyone want to ask any other questions to Richard? No? Okay.
And
Well, thank you,
I think
Richard.
I addressed. Actually, the one thing I would like to say, Grace, is
Yeah.
the other day, uh, my friend Julie Shaw's dad, J.R. Shaw, passed away. J.R. was of course, founder of Shaw Communications out west, and
Okay.
the icon of Canadian business is a title that gets thrown, around quite a bit. But J.R. really was, through force of personality and talent and vision, built a great company.
Yeah.
And as I say, my best wishes to Julie and her family,
Yeah.
because as I say, JR was just an absolute giant of Canadian industry and business.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks again.
All
And
right,
thank you
Grace.
everyone for watching our first Instagram Live.